All right, today we're diving into a really provocative idea. Get this. The philosophy of Immanuel Kant, yeah, that Kant, might have accidentally created the ultimate blueprint for social control. We're not talking about empires of land and armies, but empires built inside our own heads. So, let's unpack this wild argument.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of an empire builder for a second. Imagine you need to control a huge population, but forget about soldiers and police, that's messy and expensive. How would you do it? How do you get millions of people to police themselves? And not just that, but to believe that your system, your rules, aren't a prison, but are actually the very source of their freedom. That's the real challenge, right?
Well, according to the author we're looking at today, Christine Jones, the answer wasn't a new law or some kind of super weapon. No, it was a revolution in thought, a complete rewrite of the operating system for the human mind, changing how we understand reality itself. So yeah, in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. Break down her argument piece by piece.
All right, first up, the empire of mind. Let's really dig into this ruler's dilemma. What's the real endgame when you're trying to govern on a massive scale?
You know, it's not really about just stopping people from doing bad things. That takes way too much effort. It's inefficient. No, the real prize, the holy grail of control, is getting people to want to follow the rules, to internalize them so deeply that they police themselves and even each other. And the whole time, they believe they're just being free, rational people. I mean, that's the dream for any ruler, right?
So, to pull this off, the author argues you need a massive shift in how people see the world. Think about it. The old-school traditional view was pretty straightforward. Reality is, well, it's out there. It's objective. Truth is something you discover, and it exists whether the government likes it or not. So if a ruler is unjust, you can always appeal to a higher law, natural law, God, whatever. But then, a new idea comes along and flips the whole thing on its head. This new idea says, nope, reality is actually constructed inside your mind. Truth is just about making sure your ideas are consistent with the system's rules. And just like that, there's nothing outside the system to appeal to anymore.
And this is where Immanuel Kant walks onto the stage. Because according to the author, his philosophy wasn't just some abstract thinking. It was the actual technology, the blueprint, that could make this new kind of mind-based control a reality.
So, before Kant, the idea of truth was pretty simple. It was all about correspondence. A belief was true if it matched up with the real external world. Simple as that. Your mind was basically like a window, and your job was to keep that window clean so you could get an accurate picture of what was happening outside.
But the Kantian view, at least as the author presents it, changes the game entirely. It introduces a new standard: coherence. Suddenly, truth isn't about matching an outside world because, hey, we can't really know that world directly anyway. Instead, truth is just about whether a belief fits logically with all your other beliefs inside the system. See the difference? Your mind is no longer a window looking out. It's a projector, creating the reality you experience based on a set of internal rules.
And this is the absolute core of the argument, so it's super important. Man cannot know reality directly. Reason does not receive reality, but instead constructs the form of experience. Think about what that means. If our minds don't just see reality but actually build it, then whoever gets to set the rules for that building process, well, they get to define reality itself. That's an incredible amount of power.
Okay, I know, this is all getting pretty philosophical and abstract, so let's bring it back down to earth. The author gives a very specific historical example of this blueprint in action: Frederick the Great in his Kingdom of Prussia.
So here's the situation. You've got Frederick the Great. He has this huge ambition. He wants to create a super disciplined, manageable, and predictable state. But he's smart. He knows he can't just do it with brute force. You can't have a soldier on every corner. It's just not practical. What he needed was something deeper, a kind of mental and moral architecture for the entire country.
And this, according to Jones, is where applying this Kantian blueprint had what she calls devastating operational effects. Here's how it worked. First, you sever those metaphysical anchors. People can no longer appeal to a higher law or God that's above the state. That's gone. Second, you internalize obedience. Following the system's rules isn't just something you have to do, it becomes your moral duty. In fact, it's reframed as true freedom. Third, this produces the perfect bureaucratic citizen, someone who sees being a good, efficient cog in the machine as a virtue. And finally, and this is the killer move, you disable metaphysical rebellion. It becomes literally impossible to argue that the system is unjust by appealing to some external truth, because the system itself is now the only thing that defines what truth and justice even mean. You're trapped.
So what you get is this incredible shift. You go from messy, expensive external policing to clean, efficient, internalized consent. I mean, why would you need to police people's actions when you've already shaped the very lens through which they see the world? Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a fascinating history lesson about 18th century Prussia, but what does that have to do with me? Well, this is where Jones's argument gets really spicy. She claims this isn't history at all. This philosophical operating system is alive and kicking, right here, right now.
She points to all kinds of modern structures. Think about our education systems, corporate HR departments, DEI programs, all that mandatory compliance training, even things like modern therapy and our legal frameworks. The argument is that they all, in a way, run on this same Kantian software. They create a closed, self-referential system with its own rules and logic. And then success, or virtue, is defined as mastering and conforming to the internal rules of that system. Right? A good employee is one who navigates the corporate policies perfectly. A good student is one who masters the curriculum's framework.
The core idea is exactly the same. Freedom gets redefined. It's no longer about your connection to some bigger external truth or objective good. Instead, freedom becomes your ability to be a rational, self-governing player within the rules of the system, whatever that system happens to be. And all of this brings us to the author's really powerful conclusion, which she wraps up in one heck of a metaphor.
Otherwise, all you are doing is rearranging furniture in a prison of mirrors. Wow, a prison of mirrors. Just let that sink in for a second. If the system you're in defines your whole reality, if all you can see are reflections of the system itself, then what happens when you try to change things? The author's point is that you're not actually breaking out. You're just rearranging the furniture in your cell.
So the author leaves us with this huge, challenging question, and it's for anyone who works inside these big systems, in business, law, education, you name it. Are we just reinforcing the mental captivity? Are our efforts to make things better just rearranging the furniture in that prison of mirrors? Or are we trying to find a way to reawaken a real sense of freedom, to reconnect with the truth that exists outside the walls of the system? That's a heavy thought to end on, but it's the one she insists we absolutely have to face.